Hey everybody, welcome back to Goody and Johnny Mo at the Movies. We are here with episode 20. Very exciting that we're finally getting to this little landmark of ours.
Yep.
Today we are going to be doing Child's Play, the remake from the 1990?
The original?
What was the original Child's Play?
Was it the late 80s or early 90s?
Maybe 88.
I was going to say 88. 88 sounded right.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about that today. This was an interesting film. Before we get started, we're going to do our little beer shout out.
So what we're both drinking today is Singa, which is a Thai beer from Thailand. Apparently around since 1933. It's a standard, I would say, like Asian style lager. It's kind of light. You know, it's not, you're not going to have like that same type of taste you get from like these German beers or other European beers. But it's okay. It's a very kind of light style Asian lager. You know, sometimes that's what you need for a little change of pace.
Not bad. All right, so cheers. With
Cheers.
that, to episode 20.
Okay, so
before we get started, just so everyone know, there are going to be spoilers in this video.
Yeah. This is, I think Chris had told me about this movie like only a couple days before we went to go see it. I hadn't even realized that they had redone Child's Play. Now, the original Child's Play franchise, I forget how many movies it lasted, but I think it was at least 3, if not 4. I know there was Child's Play 2, then there was Bride of Chucky.
Well, there's Child's Play 3.
Then there's a Child's Play 3.
Then they did Bride of Chucky.
Then they did Bride of Chucky.
And then they did another... God, was it 2 or 3 films after that?
Like a reboot
right around there.
or
No,
more?
they were all continuations. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, the original franchise. The original franchise to me, they're not great movies, but they were very. The first Child's Play was a popular film.
Yes.
And it wasn't bad. I think I give it 3 stars. I think it's universally accepted as kind of like a 3-star movie. But it was very popular, and it was kind of well made for its time. You know, it wasn't the type of story that had really been done too often before. You know, like this living type of doll. And it was popular enough to spawn an entire franchise that lasted well over 10 years.
Well over a decade.
Yeah, well over a decade. And now they did this one. And it easily. Well, we'll talk about my feelings about
We're
this.
gonna get into it.
Yeah. This movie's gonna get blasted a little bit.
The one big change up for Child's Play that I think a lot of people were wondering was who was going to be the voice of Chucky. I believe it was Brad Dourif.
I have no idea who played the original.
I think I want to say his name is Brad Dourif or Dourif.
Dourif.
I think he did the original voice, and for all of the sequels. And believe it or not, I actually believe there's a Child's Play TV series in the works. I don't know if it's on one of the streaming services or if it's going to be on cable, but I believe it is going to be Brad doing the voice for that, and it's going to be based on the Child's Play series and that doll.
Okay, is it for kids or is it for?
Oh no, it's definitely adults.
Definitely for adults.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I believe that was in the works. I don't know if it still is, but I think that's something I'd be interested in probably watching only just to compare it to the actual films and just see what the quality is like. So for this, we got news a few months before the film aired that Mark Hamill was going to be doing the voice. Of course, people know Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. I don't know if some people may know this, others may not, but Mark Hamill has a big career in voice work.
In voiceover, yeah.
And one of his biggest roles was the Joker from Batman the Animated Series back in the early 90s. And he has done that role for, 20 years. Even in iterations in video games and even Warner Brothers, their animated universe that they've had some like direct-to-video, direct-to-DVD, these movies that they've been putting out. He has played the Joker a couple of times. So it was really interesting. And for me, I'm a huge Mark Hamill fan, so I was very intrigued by this to see him to play such a villainous character. The Joker was always like a villainous too, but it's a different type of villain. Like this is a lot more malicious and just for a horror genre.
Right.
But To me, I mean, after watching this film, I'm going to be biased and say he was the best part of the movie.
And I'll be honest with you, had you not told me that Mark Hamill was voicing Chucky, I might not have figured that out until the credits.
Yeah. So I told you that during the film or right before it was.
Either right before or during, you know, and because I mean, I don't really watch any of the Batman animated shows, so I think, you know, I think maybe other people who are familiar with those shows might have recognized his voice and said, "Oh, that's whoever does the Joker."
Right.
And I didn't have that comparison. But I think the voiceover was I think Mark Hamill's voiceover was pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I can't really for any problems I have with this movie. I don't really blame Mark Hamill at all. I think
No.
I blame more the writers.
I was going to say I don't even think we're in an age right now where I think these child actors they're acting at a whole nother level. Some of these, I would say the last few years, and I don't want to say it started with Stranger Things, but when I think about it, the first thing that comes to mind are the kids from Stranger Things. The actors that were in the movie It is another film that really comes to mind. I mean, these child actors nowadays are doing an incredible job reaching a whole nother emotional level that I feel like when I was growing up, those child actors didn't reach that. These kids are a lot more believable than they used to.
A lot of the previous, you know, child acting movies, especially from the '80s and up, you know, everything is basically tongue in cheek and cheap laughs and
right.
You know, there's some exceptions, but you know,
yes,
but not that many.
Yeah, but now I feel like we've just seen this whole it was almost like a class of young kids that came out, these young actors, and they've done I think an incredible job. And the kid that's in this role, I apologize, I'm not going to really know all the names. Who played Andy? I thought he did a decent job. I don't think I had too much of a problem with many of the actors. Again, I think what John said before, the writing. I think the story is it's a weak story.
Oh, it's very it really is.
So in the original Chucky, the Child's Play film, it was the serial killer that goes into a toy store to hide out, and he ends up basically transferring his essence into the doll via like voodoo.
Voodoo, yeah. You know, it's basically. I mean, the original Child's Play is basically a straight up horror film.
Absolutely.
You know, it's thoroughly entrenched in the horror genre. And in all honesty, and that's one of the main reasons why I think, you know, me and Chris wind up going up to a lot of these movies, because we're actually big fans of the horror genre.
Yes.
And you know, in all honesty, like I like to just keep up to date with that stuff. Even if the movie is not well received, you know, I'm going to keep up to date with certain of those things, just so I can, you know what's going on. You know, even just for comparison purposes. So we'll definitely just go see like a random horror film, just because it's fun.
It's usually enjoyable.
It's usually enjoyable.
Yeah. But I mean, this whole movie starts off taking place over in Korea, where they're making these dolls, right? And so there's like one programmer who just seems like down on his luck, kind of getting crapped on by his manager, is all over him. So basically, he's like, okay, fine, I'm gonna get back at you. And he's like, all right, you're making this last doll, and then you're fired. You're out of here.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay.
So he screws around with that doll.
Yeah. He basically turns off all the safety protocols on it, because it's all it's a computer-based doll, all these microchips and everything. So he just basically turns every safety protocol
which I
off.
think, I mean, from what it looked like, my recollection is basically he turned off the violence.
Language.
Violence and language.
Yeah.
So that way, basically, so that the doll can curse and kill.
Right.
Ultimately,
turn off the ones that they that they needed to censor.
Yeah. So I mean, so oddly enough, and I didn't have a problem with this. They actually changed the entire premise of this film, and they actually changed it to sci-fi horror.
Yes.
This is actually the foundation of the movie is actually science fiction. So what they did is they almost make it seem like the movie takes place in the future, but I think they did a poor job of showing the surroundings.
Yeah.
The surroundings really look like today. in every respect except for the things that they talk about with regards to and basically what the Chucky doll is it's not just like a doll, which is really what it was in the original movie. It was just a doll that you bought for kids, and it,
a good guy doll.
It was a good guy doll, and it had phrases and stuff like this. But this is actually like like a robot, that actually is interactive and learns.
It's like very basic AI.
Yeah.
But it's a learning like smart doll, if you want to call it that.
And it connects with all the technology in your house, which apparently in this reality is all run by this, like all the technology is run by this one company.
Yeah, it seems like there's like this one tech company. It's almost like a Google or like an Amazon company, and like every the TV, the lights,
the washing machine, the stereo, like everything.
Yes.
Like it can hardwire itself into everything going on in your house, and it can do things.
The Wi-Fi, not hardwire.
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi, Bluetooth.
Know the difference. Yeah,
I know.
So I mean, it does all these things, and it becomes like a member of your family, so to speak, because it's not just like say like a super duper version of like an Alexa, where you kind of just talk to it and it does stuff. It actually kind of walks around and can interact and
it's learning the entire time as it's going through. Like it's learning your preferences, things that you like and don't like. And with this iteration, with this version, Andy's much older. So I think Andy in the original Child's Play from '88 is probably about like 6 years old.
Yeah.
And this Andy, this guy, he's a teenager, or he's turning 13.
He's at least 11, if not 12.
I think he's definitely he hits his birthday, and I think he's either 12 turning 13 or he's 13 turning 14. It's something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, so these robots are really, they're really kind of high tech. They're not just dolls for kids. So what happens is now I was trying to remember this. They kind of explain the technology via these commercials.
Yeah, and it's like this CEO is like discussing the tech.
It's like and that actually was a good way of telling giving like the foundation of the story.
Giving the audience giving them some insight information.
So I think that actually worked as opposed to like any other way they could have done it. So that kind of worked. But it really made it like, this is a really high-end piece of technology. It's not like just this, a cheap doll. But I'm trying to remember because there's different versions of the Chucky doll. And the version that, isn't predominant in this movie is the 1.0.
Yes.
And were the commercials for the 2.0?
The commercials started basically talking about, and you see this like very early on. It's almost like so Andy's mother works at essentially like a Kmart or a Walmart.
Called Zagmart. Which I'm not actually really a big fan of that name. I think that was like a kind of a stupid name. They probably could have come up with a better sounding name.
But with this, all you see are ads and these posters for like pre-orders of the 2.0 version of this doll.
So I'm trying to figure out if the 2.0 version is the one that's going to be doing all this interactive stuff, and the 1.0 didn't.
I think the 1.0 was capable of doing most of those things.
Just this is the next
version. But the 2.0 is just exactly.
Okay.
Just like a better
I don't think it was a scenario where the 1.0 was just a doll and the 2.0 is this crazy, interactive robot. I think they were both along those lines. But so what happens is I think somebody winds up getting that doll that the guy screwed around with, and they realize that there's something off about it.
Yep.
I think it's saying inappropriate things.
Yeah, it just gets returned.
And then they wind up returning it, and they're about to send it off to back to the manufacturer, which is probably going to destroy it because the 1.0s are on their way out. And she winds up kind of pressuring her boss into being able to basically kind of take it for free and bring it home. And give it to her son as a birthday present.
Right. And at this point, like they had just moved, so like the son's kind of lonely. He doesn't have any friends. And he gets the doll as a birthday present, and he almost like scoffs at it at first because he's like, I'm kind of too old for this thing. Like this is like a little bit, for him, this is like, he's probably a few years too old past this doll.
Well, and that's one of the that's one of the things about this movie that little bit of dialogue and how they presented that scene really I found really annoying and off base, because that his reaction would have made sense if the Chucky dolls were just dolls for kids. I mean, I'm a little old for a buddy doll, that pull a string or whatever.
Right.
And if this was like the same type of movie and the same type of technology in the original Child's Play movies, him being 11, 12, or 13 would have made sense for him to say, I'm too old for this. But at the end of the day, these are not the same Chucky dolls.
Right.
So it really, even the 1.0, even though it's about to be replaced with the 2.0, they're not for kids. They're almost like for the whole family. Maybe the kid will be the bond, but at the end of the day, like, they're not just dolls for kids.
Right.
And I just found that reaction to be, you've changed you've changed the story, but you forgot to adjust that reaction in this. It's like this. I'm like, that made no sense for him to react that way, because it was like, these are not just dolls for kids.
But you also see, like, later in the film, you see other kids playing with the same type of doll. Like, that other kid who was around his same age had the same doll. So it's not like it's out of the realm of their age group. Like, if you would have if you would have saw like kids like 8, 9, 10 years old playing with this doll, that'd be one thing. But the fact that he has other friends that, or not, I don't even know if it was his friend, but there was just other kids that had that doll. So okay, so the kids are still playing with this at this age.
But not for nothing, if you were like an adult couple, or and you didn't have kids, you could still get this doll to just hang around, because it does all these.
It interacts.
It interacts with everything going on. Like, you could have it, be in control of the wash and and all sorts of things. It's like it's kind of like like having Alexa. Like, Alexa's not really for kids. You could have it play kids music, but it's at the end of the day, it can do all sorts of things. It's a search engine. This thing could like figure out stuff for you to do, like if you want to go out to dinner with it, it'll make reservations.
But in the beginning, when they get this doll, it's malfunctioning, so it can't hook up to anything yet. That was one thing that they showed off.
Okay.
Like, when they first get him, they're even saying like, oh, like, there's something wrong with him. He's not working right. I do find it very funny how they came up with the name for Chucky in this film.
And that to me was also, I thought, was really stupid.
So this was very tongue in cheek. So basically, the doll asks Andy, like, what is my name, or what do you want to call me?
Right.
And the first thing that Andy says
is
Han Solo.
So it's kind of like a Star Wars joke.
Obviously, with Mark Hamill being the voice.
Right. And then out of nowhere, the doll just says, no, I don't want to be called Han Solo. I want to be called Chucky.
Oh, I thought he said like.
So not exactly those words.
Okay. Because I thought the doll says to him, "Oh, you want me to be called Chucky?" Like, it was something so like off. Like, it didn't make sense. Like, how the doll just all of a sudden decided it was going to be Chucky.
The doll named himself,
right.
Which makes absolutely no sense, because even with the programming changes that they made in the doll, like, that should have nothing to do with that. Like, so I just likened this to the point where I think you had a bunch of writers in the room, and they're just like, one guy just has it in his head. He goes, look, I want Mark Hamill's the voice. Mark Hamill's the voice. So we wanna, I want to have him like call him Han Solo. He goes, he wants that joke in there, and the other guy's going, yeah, but it's, we can't have him called Han Solo. He's got to be called Chucky. And they're like, well, how are we going to do that? He goes, look, let's just do it. Let's just throw the joke in there, and then have Chucky say, no, I'm going to be Chucky instead. And it's like, you just sit there and say like it just doesn't make sense.
No,
they just do what they do.
That definitely was.
You can just write whatever you want. Like, there's no problems in so many movies today. There's just no problems in logic. They just do what they do.
Well,
whether it makes sense or not.
And you're gonna have to just.
And you just gotta buy.
You gotta accept it.
But to me, like, I don't know why they just didn't have the kid change his mind and call it Chucky.
Right.
Like, like, oh, I'm only kidding. How about Chucky? Like, it just makes no sense that the doll named itself.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how you're gonna get it to be Chucky? Okay. To me,
No,
that
it
was just stupid.
I agree with you on that. I thought that was really, like, as soon as like that like whole like bit ended, I'm like, so that's really how he gets his name. I'm like, all right.
You know, and an example, it's just another example of, you know, just basically poor writing,
Yeah.
poor story structure. You know, just
Like, but the interesting thing is that like Andy starts to actually develop a relationship with Chucky. Like
Mhm.
the next like I guess like day or so, like he actually finds him kind of useful and like actually starts to almost like befriend him a little bit. Like he actually because Andy still really doesn't have any friends at this point, so this actually does kind of work out for him. And then
Right.
eventually, you know, towards after this part, like he does start meeting these two other kids that are in this apartment complex with him.
And there's, you know, the apartment has, like, you know, this whole cast of characters. Where
yes,
you know, these are all cardboard, you know, stereotypical, you know, caricatures. There's nothing of substance there. You know, they just have like the other kids who are, you know, just,
like too cool. Sometimes too
yeah,
cool, too cool for school. Some of the
yeah,
kids.
you know, doing
Yeah.
their own thing, and, you know, just doing a horse around.
I did like. I had to say, I did like the cop. The cop is probably like the one character. Like,
See, now, I thought
actually,
the cop
actually
was a little
enjoyed
weird
him.
because one of the things they did with the cop was, so there's a cop that lives down the hall from them.
Well, his
Sorry, his mother lives down the hall, and he's always visiting.
Yeah.
Then of course you have, like, you know, the seedy, you know, janitor type guy or superintendent.
who comes
You know?
into play later in the film.
Yeah, who, you know, he almost reminded me a little bit of, like, almost like a Newman type character.
Well, he definitely looked like oh gosh, what's his name from The Hangover?
He did Zach
Galifianakis.
Galifianakis.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, he definitely
looked like
reminded me of someone, but this guy was just, and he's a total, sleazebomb. You know,
Oh, yeah.
He's got
like peep cams
he's got hidden
everywhere.
cameras all over the place, checking people out. And to me, this was another thing that I thought was, I'm pretty sure this movie was rated R,
Yes.
and there was no nudity in it. Like, I think literally almost no nudity. And I'm sitting there going like, all right, oh, this guy's got the little peep camera. You're like, that's how they're gonna get the nudity in there. And I'm just sitting there going like, rated R, no nudity. It's like, all right,
Did you need the nudity?
Well, it's nice. It's nice to check. It's nice to check off that box. Say, well, at least they had, someone had a nice rack or something.
In a bad horror movie, it's like, okay, that makes up for it.
Yeah, like, well, I'll give you an example. Okay, so just to give you an example, like, I really, really hated this movie. And, we're going to talk more about that later. But, like, this literally, in my opinion, was one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
That is the first thing that John said to me as the credits started to roll. Like, literally within 10 seconds of the credits rolling, he leans over to me and he's like, I think this is the worst movie I've seen in a very long time.
Oh, yeah, because most of those movies in that worst movie list, a lot of them are from the 80s. Keep in mind, I've seen some really bad movies, but, like, there are some, like, I don't even almost count, like, the low-budget movies made by nobody. Like, these are people that have no money, and sometimes you get a gem out of that. You get, like, every now and then you get, like, a Night of the Living Dead,
Right.
out of that. That was a very independent, low-budget film made by nobody at the time,
For Halloween.
things like that. But, like, there's these movies out there that are just really bad, but they have no budget, and they're not made by a major studio, and they, there's no stars. Nobody in that movie has any, and it's like, so, and a lot of those movies are really bad. But, like, you get these movies like this movie, Child's Play, was not, like, made by, a bunch of guys in their basement.
Plus you have the name. Like, you have a built-in name brand.
Well, exactly.
And it's like, you should, okay, like, people are coming to see this for the doll. Now, I will say this movie, the death scenes in this film were a lot more graphic
and gruesome
than the 88 film.
Sure.
I will say that, like, they definitely had no problem showing like, blood, gore, like all of that, which I don't know if I was shocked at, but it was just it was really interesting that they definitely went, like, all out in the death scenes.
And it was, I guess it was just one of those things where, like, they had to do something, so they like, if it's lacking in certain areas, at least it excelled in others, and in a lot of people's minds, the graphic violence is you want that in a horror movie, but I think in some cases it could be a little much.
Well, I did think it was. I mean,
it's not done with any
the
style.
mother down the hall getting killed in the car. That was fantastic.
That was like the only.
That was
enjoyable scene.
That was really funny. It was funny and suspenseful at the same exact time. So the mother that's down the hall that this cop he goes to visit his mom. So this big conglomerate company also offers like a driving service, but there's no driver. It's just a car, and it's like an Uber service without the driver.
Yeah.
So they basically this woman orders the car to go to like the supermarket or
bingo.
Bingo night. Yeah.
She's like an older black woman who's got a lot of she's got a lot of character.
She's great.
She's got great dialogue.
She does. She's so I'm telling you, her and her son were like my favorite characters I think in the film. So she gets in the car and I forget so basically anybody that crosses Chucky and does or says anything that interferes with Andrew and his relationship.
Yeah.
Because he sees himself.
He becomes possessive.
He's very possessive. He sees himself as Andy's best friend. So if anybody takes on that role, he gets overly protective and he's like basically just looks okay. Well, you know what? You're not going to be around anymore. So he basically takes it upon himself to hijack this woman's Uber, and when she gets to her location, all of a sudden he turns it on and just basically plays games with her in the parking lot, like doing donuts, spinning her around,
right.
And then crashes her.
Right, but before he crashes her, I think probably the best line in the movie
is when she sees him.
Yeah.
So she sees the doll
at one point.
And she looked, and at this point now, Chucky's got these red eyes whenever he's in evil mode.
Okay, yeah. So just to talk about that makes absolutely no sense. that his eyes would turn red,
It's evil time.
It's like turning off the protocols apparently affects the pigmentation protocols in his eyes.
Yeah, it goes from blue all nicey nice to red.
Yeah. It just you kind of it makes sense for a horror movie, but it just makes absolutely no sense that his eye color would change. But we're not supposed to think about those things. We're just supposed to sit back and enjoy the ride.
Turn our brains off.
Turn your brain off.
But so do the line.
Yeah. So he looks at. She winds up looking at him, sees him, and she. What does she say? You
hobbit.
You MFing hobbit.
Yeah. Or you hobbit MF or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was something
either
that.
Hobbit MF or MF Hobbit.
Yeah,
but she didn't say MF. She said the whole thing.
But I'll tell you right now, I think that might have given me the biggest laugh of the entire film.
Yeah, and that exactly. That was like the one of maybe the one enjoyable part of the film.
Yeah.
So just talking about going back to something that I mentioned before. So my opinion, some of the absolute worst movies I've ever seen in my life. That are like not these low budget no name films. Movies like The Final Terror, which is like one of the worst slasher films in the 80s. Night Patrol, absolute. Police Academy knockoff, probably the worst Police Academy knockoff ever. Like literally a comedy where I never laughed once. Then they had this movie called Humongous from the 80s. Kids on an island with there's this monster on there, whatever. And it's like a movie like that. It's like that movie was horrible. But there was one chick in the group who had a great rack, and you got the nude shot. And you sit there and say, all right, you know what? At least it wasn't a total loss. And you just, the only part of this movie that was where you sit there and you say, all right, it was worth seeing this movie just for that was that line. Having her, mouthed off to Chucky. She mouths off to Chucky, and she was still a goner.
Yeah, I don't think she was goner at that point anyway. But it's just because so at that point so Chucky had he already killed the boyfriend?
I lose track of because like I said, we only saw it once. So there's a lot of deaths, but so to me one of the. It was just so blatant. It was when so the son goes to the scene where his mother's dead. And so they have her laying in the street.
Oh, the cop.
Yeah, the cop. Well, yeah, the son is a cop, and the mother is just laying there on the street with her eyes closed, and there's like a big knife just sticking out of her chest. It's just
it's still there.
Yeah,
It's still in there.
And the son's sitting there looking at it. It's like, are you kidding me, man? It was so oddly enough. One of the things that I was finding interesting is a lot of the things that the Chucky doll is doing, it is learning from the people around it.
So the kids are watching a horror film.
Yeah, they're watching Texas
Oh,
Chainsaw Massacre 2.
2, yeah.
And you basically got all these kids watching this really kind of violent, movie, and they're sitting there and they're laughing, and they're, and it's like, and you see, it kind of a little bit draws that parallel about how, like, these movies like kind of desensitize you to violence, because not for nothing, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a horrifying film.
Yes.
It is brutal, and it is unrelenting, and it's claustrophobic, and it really and not for nothing, the later ones were not like that at all. The later ones were all
just slasher,
stupid nonsense. But like you always talk about how these horror movies became more and more violent and more gratuitous violence, and as opposed to stylistic violence,
well, it has to,
or shocking violence.
Well, it's. I mean, the goal was always to one up the previous film.
Right, but the thing is, they would one up it, but they would lose. They would go further in the violent direction, but it would lose any artistry and stylistic. Because I mean, a lot of these horror films from the '70s and even the early '80s, they're actually very well done, unique movies. They're not just these straight formulaic, just violent for the sake of violence. And I think a lot of the reboots are like when we saw Halloween last year. I thought the violence was so brutal and unstylistic. There was just book.
Well, very different from the original.
Exactly, very different from John Carpenter's original Halloween. And like again, even this movie compared to the original Child's Play. I think some of the I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen the original Child's Play movie in quite a while, but like I remember it being a little bit more, there was a little bit more style to it. It wasn't just killing and on to the next kill. There was it was done with a little bit of flair.
Well, there was also just a lot more suspense then, because it's like the doll basically was not just that until it starts to finally turn.
Yeah.
And for the most part, like everybody's blaming Andy. Like everyone's thinking like like something's wrong with Andy, with the kid. And even his mom doesn't even really like know what's going on with him until she finally sees the doll like move and come after him.
Yeah. And that's why, and I think that's why the first movie is a little bit more effective in terms of storyline, is because the doll is sentient. It has a personality has nothing to do with computer programming. It's just he's basically this bad guy.
He's trapped in a
doing
doll's
stuff.
Yeah.
So he literally can do whatever he wants. Whereas in this movie, you kind of have to direct what the doll is doing based on what you kind of expect the programming parameters to do. Like the doll just can't do anything. It has to build up a repertoire of personality.
I think the one thing that this movie did, which was interesting with the doll, is they made the doll creepy. Like there were definitely scenes in this movie where like the doll, like when Andy wakes up and Chucky's like next to the bed just staring at him.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were some really creepy like looks that Chucky does. And I will say that they did a really good job with the doll, and the facial expressions that they did, and just some of his actions and how creepy they were before like he starts getting like incredibly violent and starts maiming everybody. But we finally get to the point where Andy is trying to basically tell everybody like what's going on, and of course nobody believes him that this doll is going crazy. And then we get towards the end where they're at now, like they're finally getting to the point where they're going to reveal the 2.0 doll, right? I mean, so they're at like the store. There's it's like one of these like midnight madness shopping sprees of everybody coming at the Zagmart. Everyone's got to come in. Well, before we get to that, so we got to talk about the creepy super. Super in the. So the guy who's the super in the apartment building gets his hands on Chucky because the kids all start to see. So Andy's two friends that he's made start to see that Chucky's doing bad things. So they're like, all right, we're gonna take this guy out. So they basically like take his battery out. They like destroy his inner battery. And at this point, Chucky now can't function. They toss him down a garbage chute.
Well, yeah, and apparently, if you need to if you need to get rid of anything in an apartment complex,
we
just toss it down the garbage. Everything was down the garbage chute. You know, I mean, not that there was a scene, I think, where Chucky kills the cat.
Yeah.
And that actually was a little disturbing. Like, you know, like that was like a pretty, it was a violent scene. It was just, you know, it was just like it was just disturbing. And, you know,
love cats.
You know, and they they throw the cat down the garbage chute.
Goes down the garbage chute.
And then,
severed head goes down the garbage
yeah,
chute.
severed head. Not for nothing, the whole storyline with the severed head being on the...
As a gift for the cop's mother's place.
What did they put it around? A watermelon? What did they put the head on? I think they...
Well, it was wrapped. It was wrapped as a present. He was saying
but
it was
they put
like
the head
something
on
like
something.
It was on like a table.
No, but the head... Basically, so the Chucky doll kills the boyfriend. And
the mother's boyfriend.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of... I thought that scene was a little goofy because basically, I mean, the doll goes to the guy's house and the guy's like taking down Christmas lights off his roof, and you know Chucky knocks the ladder down and he falls down, and now he's like, you know, somehow he got entwined in the Christmas lights, which was retarded. And now he's like crawling across the ground with the whole trail of Christmas lights wrapped around him and the whole end trailing, and basically Chucky's like catching up to him with I don't know. I almost want to say was it a snowblower? I thought it was a snowblower.
I don't know if it was a snow.
And it's basically just gonna like, you know, just crunch him up,
yeah.
Just grind him up. And he winds up taking the guy's head, like, well, not his head, but like his face. Like all the skin around his head, you know, like a mask, because his head was there with just no.
Yes, and he puts the
head and the face, like the whole skin. I thought he put it.
He put the face on a lamp or something.
I thought it was a watermelon. So now and the kid wakes up and he just sees like the boyfriend's face, you know, from like the neck up and all on this watermelon. Yeah. And then,
but he walks by it at first. He doesn't notice it. And then he's like,
what the hell is going on? What's the matter? And so what do? They, you know, the kid, he shows his friends, and they're like, what are we going to do? And they wrap it up in wrapping paper, and they're going to toss it.
And as they get there,
they're going to toss it down the garbage chute.
And then who does he run into?
He runs into the mother, and then they're like, and they get into this whole idiotic scenario where now he's like, they got to lie about it. And they say, oh, it's a gift for the neighbor, and they have to, well, let's go deliver it. And now there's this, you know, it just seemed very, very contrived. They just put that together because they could.
Well, they needed to get the creepy super involved.
Yeah.
So the super now gets his hands on Chucky, and he's like, oh, good, I got this doll, and then apparently orders a backup battery that comes in like an hour.
Yep. Like
via package, and then it arrives, and then he basically. But once he puts that into Chucky, now Chucky gets reactivated, and now he has full access to all of his capabilities. So all of his Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities start to turn on. So now he starts screwing with the super. He's like turning lights on and off. He's turning like the stereo on and off. And like, you know, the guy doesn't know what's going on because he's like all he's doing is he's staring at his creepy closed circuit TVs of all his little peep shows that he's got going on, and one of them is just Andy's mom that he's staring at. So Chucky eventually like rigs this whole thing up real quick to get the super kind of like tied up and gets a table saw going, and the super's just hanging on a hot pipe with his bare hands, and the table saw is underneath him. So of course the pipe gets too hot.
Right, and not for nothing, like how he died, I just thought was so silly. It just was stupid. I'm like, this isn't gonna happen. Like, he's gonna, like, I don't know why he didn't just go forward or backward. Like, he wasn't tied there. He was suspended.
He wasn't tied there.
He was suspended above there, and it's like, like all you had to, like, basically what they're saying was like, if he fell, he was gonna land right on this table saw.
Right. And it wasn't flat. It was, at this point, it was like tilted.
Yeah.
So he couldn't land flat on it. It was a wet surface. Like, wasn't it
like all he had to do was just jump to the side, like like apparently like he got
No, but I
sawed
think-
in half.
No, but he couldn't, because I think the table was like slick with like some type of oil or something, so he couldn't slide. He couldn't he had no grip with his shoes. So, but like you said, though, like he could have walked forward or backward on the pipe,
Yeah.
and he would have been fine.
Or just
His hands
try
were
and
burned.
swing a little bit and
Yeah.
get to the side.
Because like he's holding onto the pipe thinking he's okay, and then
Yeah.
Chucky hits the thermostat and turns the heat way up,
Yeah.
and so now there's hot water going through the pipe.
Yeah, and I mean they presented it like this guy's in a no-win situation. He
Right.
lets go of the pipe, he's gonna die. There's nothing he can do. And I'm sitting there looking at it, going like, if that was me on that pipe, I would not hit that saw. Like I would be able to get away from it.
But like I think this one scene is really just trying to step up and show like how much Chucky's now connected
Right.
to everything because of
Right.
how much he can literally turning on power receptacles, the switches, the lights, the thermostats, the stereo. So once that's all said and done, and he kills him, now it's on to the store. Now
Right.
it's on to Zagmart.
Right, and just to talk a little bit about that scene again, it's just a matter of like, it's again what we say. So it's like how the scenes were written. At the end of the day, I didn't have a problem with how they changed the story because it was like I'm not sitting there going like, well, they didn't do like a voodoo possession.
No, it's modernized.
It's totally modernized.
Yeah.
And I was like okay with the direction they went in. I just felt like they just didn't do this story that well. Like you could have done this story and done it better.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been a better movie.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not looking for like Steven Spielberg's, AI, artificial intelligence, or Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. At the end of the day, it's a horror film. They're just trying to but like you can do these movies better than they are. Without doubling and tripling the budget. You just got to make a better movie. So I was actually okay with them completely changing the premise of the film. I just wish they had embraced that sci-fi aspect of it and done it better, and just made more sensible scenes.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But I think it was at the end of the day.
Because I'm pretty sure
it just
this
is what
movie
it
did
is.
not make a lot of money. Like no one, like some people sit there and say, "Well, you're wrong because it made a ton of money." Well, guess what? I'm pretty sure this movie did not make a lot of money.
But that argument doesn't really mean much because there are a lot of films that do make a lot of money that aren't that.
That aren't that good. No, it doesn't mean much. But then, if you don't make a lot of money, you can't even use that nonsensical argument.
But I mean, I don't know how much this movie. I forget what the budget was for this film compared to how much it made.
Mm-hmm. I can't
and if there were
imagine
talks for a
greenlighting
sequel
a
or
sequel.
not. I don't know. You'd be surprised. But this is where I think the streaming services come into play, where one of them could say, "Hey, you know what? Just chop the budget down a little bit. If you could do this film for this amount of money, you could stream it with us. We'll take it."
So now they get into the Zagmart, and that's when he goes a little haywire.
Now this is when they start promoting all the 2.0s, and we start actually seeing that there's multiple models. So before we did all this, there was basically a red-headed version of this doll and a blonde-headed version of this doll. And that was basically it. That's all we pretty much saw for the 1.0s. But now the 2.0, it's every hair color, different ethnicities. There's a bear, right? There's a bear version.
There's a lot of different versions.
There's different takes now on the doll itself. And I mean, so there's the manager. The manager dresses up as one of the dolls. But and there's a big presentation. There's this huge line.
He's gonna be coming out from behind. The scenes.
He's coming out like he's the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus, and he's about to come out. And before he does,
Chucky winds up stabbing him.
Chucky stabs him and kills him.
Yeah, but he's not. But he's bleeding out.
Yeah, he's bleeding out. He's not dead. So he turns to start walking out to the crowd,
and he's stumbling
and he
around.
literally lands in front of this little girl who's so happy. And then all of a sudden, they take he takes his head the cap off, and he just starts squirting blood.
Like a vein
just gushes.
And just gets all over the girl's face. And
I mean,
it's
the girl was
really,
7 or 8 years old.
Yeah, and it's just it's just I'm like, come on.
Wow. And I was like, wow, since they really did that.
Yeah, and I think some of that stuff was just it was just tasteless. It was just in your face. It was just
That was really interesting. And then basically like the whole, and then of course it's just like, you know, Chucky just takes control of all of these.
Yeah, there's all sorts
These
of drones
2.0s
going on.
and drones that are going on. It just starts, you know, trying to kill people with the blades as it's traveling around, until, you know, the cop shows up and finally sees what's going on and then starts to believe Andy. But unfortunately, he gets hit by one of the drones.
Yeah.
So he goes down, and so now it's basically everyone's cleared out of the store except Andy, his mom, and the kids.
Before we even, yeah, that's his friends. Yeah, so this is one of the, in my opinion, I just found this to be totally goofy. And I don't know that a lot of people did, but like, so one of Andy's friends, you know, they all start, you know, they're in a Zagmo. It's got all sorts of stuff all over the place, you know. So they start like finding stuff to use as weapons.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And the girl,
this was your favorite.
The girl gets a hedge trimmer, and she's like walking around with this hedge trimmer, like, you know, bopping drones and doing this and that. And I'm sitting there going like, she's got a hedge trimmer, and I'm like, do the people who wrote this movie know how a hedge trimmer works? Like, a hedge trimmer is not a chainsaw. Like, if I had a hedge trimmer right now and I went like this against Chris's neck, full force, it would just be like me hitting him with a piece of metal. Like, it's not gonna cut his head off. It's not even gonna break his skin. You know, the way that a hedge trimmer.
I think that would break skin.
I don't think it would.
The metal would break the skin.
Well, but not because it's cutting. The actual cutting parts of a hedge trimmer are further in. Like, the only way you're going to get cut by a hedge trimmer is if you stick your finger in between the two outer grooves and put it in there to the parts that are cutting. Like, that's how a hedge trimmer works. Like, you know when you're getting all the branches and the hedges, they're slipping into the grooves and then they're getting cut. It's not like a chainsaw that just goes zoom. And I'm just watching this and I'm going, that's the dumbest weapon.
But I don't know why. But why didn't they just go with a freaking chainsaw?
I don't know. Like, you should have just went with a chainsaw. But
I mean,
like,
I guess it's interesting because no one's ever used a hedge trimmer before.
Right,
like
and but the thing is, in the
why.
movie, it was an effective weapon, and I'm like, it should not be an effective weapon.
Yeah.
And there, she was using it to bust, you know, cut things in half.
She beheaded the teddy bear.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not a sword. It's not a chainsaw,
Yeah.
you know. It's a hedge trimmer. Come on.
The one thing to me that didn't make sense when Chucky starts taking over all of these other, you know, smart dolls, is that Chucky's main CPU was corrupted by the guy who put it together and erased all of his parameters. Now, we are assuming at this point that when Chucky connects via, you know, Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to these 2.0 versions, that he is basically turning off these functions, because all of these dolls have been put together with all these safety protocols in mind.
Yeah.
So not only is he taking control of them, he's hacking their programming and overriding
which you would think they would not be able to do.
I don't, like, at some point it's like, all right, now you're overstretching. To be able to turn them on, like, to turn them on as a distraction would be one thing, but to turn them on to, like, to corrupt them and change their programming,
like mental, like just like via thinking about it.
You know, I'm shocked that, well, I guess I'm not shocked with this film, but I'm having a hard time accepting that the doll could do that.
Well, someone had even posed. I was explaining this movie to someone, you know, giving them the quick, you know, preview of it, and, you know, telling them, you never need to see this movie in your entire life. I'm just going to say what it's about. And they were like, why would there even be parameters that you could turn off? Like, it shouldn't even have like an on off. Like, you would program it to act a certain way. Like,
that would be it.
Yeah, there wouldn't be an option to say, okay, you know, turn off the language so that it can curse, and turn off the violence so that it could be violence. Like,
right.
like you wouldn't build it so that it could do all that, and now you scale it back to what you want.
Right.
Like, you would never give it that extra.
It would just have it, and that's it.
Yeah, it would just have what you know, you program it to what it can do. You don't give the option to do things that it shouldn't, and, you know, be able to turn that off.
Yeah.
So I think that was like again, it's like one of the things we always say is, like, you know, there's these stretches, there's these, you know, things you just gotta take for granted, you accept it, and if there's only a couple of those, that's fine. Like, you just say, okay, that's what you get, and then you go from there. But like when there's like, okay, this doesn't make sense, and this doesn't make when it builds up, then you have
this was a complete build-up.
there's a collective feeling of a lot of things that don't make sense, and that will detract from the film.
The problem, and also one of the biggest issues towards the end of the film, is that all of a sudden we see. So at the end of the film, we're basically with just Andy, his mom, and then Chucky. And then Chucky sees Andy's mom as a threat, and so of course she's got to go. Chucky starts to become much more animated than he has throughout the entire film, doing things that we have not seen him do yet, mobility-wise. Just the way he got around much faster, the way he could almost like climb things, and the way he moved. He almost had like acrobatic, he was like an acrobat for a couple of sequences at the end, and that to me was a little bit hard to buy. But he looks like he basically looks like he took out Andy's mom. She ends up being okay, but then he's about to kill.
Well, she's hanging. Well, the mother.
What is she hanging?
She's
right?
hanging
She's
from a rope.
Like she's almost. Is she
suspended from a? I think
she's
from
suspended,
from,
right.
From I think almost like a forklift.
Right.
And oddly enough,
here comes the hedge trimmer.
Here comes the hedge trimmer to cut the rope, and it's a thick piece of rope. It's not twine.
Right.
I'm like, and it's just like on a bad angle, and the hedge trimmer cuts through the rope, and I'm like, I don't think it would. And
then we're finally at the end where it looks like Chucky is about to stab Andy, to the point where he actually picks up the knife and like he's like the knife overhead about to go. And then here comes my favorite cop to the rescue. He's still alive, ends up shooting Chucky dead.
Now you like the cop.
Great.
You like the cop. And I thought the cop was a little odd because one of the personality traits of the cop is that he tries to be funny, but he's not funny.
It's like he does it's like if anyone's heard the term like dad jokes, like he tries to be like the hip cool like older guy to these young kids, and he fails miserably with the jokes that he tries to put out.
And they're not funny. Now sometimes like someone who's trying to be funny who's not funny, that's funny. But I found it to be not. I found that this guy was so not funny. I was almost confused as to what he was trying to say, and I'm like, oh, he's trying to be funny, and he's so not funny that it actually isn't even funny that he's not funny. I thought it was stupid.
I laughed at him not being funny.
And maybe that's just a preference thing. I thought his character was so not funny that it wasn't funny.
But he knew he wasn't funny. And I think that was part of it too. That was part of the joke, because he says it when he's with his mom and he's with Andy. He's like saying things he's like, nobody gets me, or like nobody listens, and like you kind of just laugh at it.
Yeah.
But I kept thinking the entire time that we were gonna get some like after credit scene where we see that Chucky had taken himself and put himself into one of the other dolls, because the 2.0 dolls looked a little bit more like the original Chucky doll.
And that's something. I'll be honest with you. I actually like the original Chucky look better than this Chucky.
Yeah, no, I did too. And I mean that's just a pull string doll. But that's why I thought the 2.0 was much more streamlined and actually looked like a better figure or character. And I guess we do kind of get something like that at the very end of the film, right? Like, aren't they like they're like stalking like the dolls or something like that?
Yeah.
And we see like the eyes just light up inside the box. I think wasn't that it?
I think so. Because the standard end of the movie. Ooh,
Yeah, it's just like one
which
of
those. Which is so overused now.
So they listen. They've obviously set up a possibility for this becoming a franchise again, and then setting something up. But I just don't know if it really made the money to get that. In all honesty.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, listen, if you like horror films and you want to just turn your brain off.
Well, if you like bad horror
if you like
bad horror films,
this is not like the 1988 Child's Play.
Like this.
This is like the fourth bad sequel in that series.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you like that taste. If you like Mark Hamill though, and you want to,
I mean, I saw Bride of Chucky, and that movie wasn't all that, but I think it was better than this.
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this movie was really bad. I think I wound up giving this movie like 1.5 stars.
Well, that was what's her name, Lily. Oh, what's her name? But she was the bride.
Oh yeah, I know you.
Oh God, something Lily. I forget the first name.
She does the voice on Family
She does the
Guy.
voice. Yeah. Oh, she's great.
Yeah.
I really like her. Okay, guys, but you know what? I think that's it for this review.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna put this one in the books. So, not a great turnout for Child's Play, but we ended up seeing it.
We ended up seeing it, so we
Yeah.
had to
We had to
review
do the
it,
review.
and
We
that's
wanted
the way it goes.
to give you guys our honest opinion. Listen, that's all that it is. You might really enjoy that film. That's okay.
You might think this is like the cutting edge.
You're like, all right, you can't wait to see the next one. That's all right. I all the more power
You might
to
be
you.
waiting a long time.
You might be waiting a while for that one. That might be a direct to Blu-ray. We'll see. That might be on demand. But anyway, guys, thank you much for watching. This is episode 20. We're signing off. We're going to be doing 21 coming up next. We're going to be reviewing Spider-Man Far From Home. A little bit more of a lighter film than this film. But hope you guys enjoy the rest of the night. Take care. Cheers.
Have a good one.